一、二、三、四、五、六、七。
I love rhythm games, and I've played many throughout my years, from the simplest arcade types to the ultra-competitive performance ones. But some are good, and some definitely aren't. God damn it! So the question has to be asked, what is the best rhythm game out there? And why is it Rhythm Doctor? Alright, look, I'll admit, I kinda lied in my title, because there is just no way I could have actually found the best rhythm game out there. Even though I've played dozens of different games, I haven't played every single one, and I bet if I did the math, I've probably played less than 1% of all of them. But I have played a lot of the big and popular ones, so I've noticed a couple things that stick out as being important to making a rhythm game good. And throughout all the games I have played, Rhythm Doctor is the only game that nails all of them. For instance, one of the first things I noticed was the timing mechanics. Now, yeah, it sounds dumb that I'm talking about timing as being important to a rhythm game, a genre of games that is literally dependent on timing, but you'd be surprised, a lot of rhythm games don't actually have any timing systems. For instance, take Beat Saber. Now, I love Beat Saber. In fact, it's probably my most played rhythm game, but it's also not technically a rhythm game, since it doesn't actually score you based on how on time you were. Instead, it only scores you based on how well you hit the blocks, such as how good your swing was or how much arc they had. Hence why levels can look like this and still be beatable. But no matter if you hit the blocks early or late, so long as the swing was good, you get a high score. Similarly, Geometry Dash is another game that falls into this category of not a rhythm games. Since it does have music, and most of the levels do follow the beat, but in reality it doesn't judge the player based on how well they stick to the beat. A lot of levels have jumps that are definitely not on time. But then there's Rhythm Doctor, which not only has a timing system, but a really good one. It's insanely precise, so precise that you actually have to calibrate it pretty often in order to make sure it's 100% accurate. Otherwise, you'll just end up, and, also, plus, oh yeah, and, sometimes. Rhythm Doctor's timing system can be pretty infuriating, but it's accurate, and it's what makes it challenging. You have to be on time, otherwise you will fail. Plus, Rhythm Doctor does great relying on a one-input system. A good timing system can be hard to implement when there's only one way to time a beat, but Rhythm Doctor does it incredibly well. It's simple, and yet it still does it better than a lot of other games, but I'll get to that later. For now, another place Rhythm Doctor does really well where most other rhythm games don't is replayability. Replayability is key for a game's success, especially with rhythm games, where more often than not, it's very similar from level to level. Like, how is this really all that different from this? In order to keep these games interesting after the normal amount of hours people put into these games, they need to be pretty replayable. But unfortunately, this isn't always the case. Take the Rhythm Heaven series, for instance. Now, this series is fantastic, offering some of the most unique and fun gameplay I've ever seen in any rhythm game. Its arcadey and approachable style is something that few other games in this genre can acclaim to, but yet it's kind of boring after a while. Initially, Rhythm Heaven may seem more replayable than most other games thanks to its many different types of game modes, but because there are only a limited number of them and there's no custom map support in any of the games, it fails to be replayable. Sure, it's fun for the first couple hours, but once you beat one of the games, there's very little reason to come back, besides trying to perfect a level, that is.
Fuck!
Rhythm Doctor follows suit by introducing new types of modes constantly throughout the game. Where it differs is that it has developer-added support for custom maps, which increase the game's replayability tenfold. Want Megalovania? Sure, Bad Apple coming right up. A probably unbeatable mess with poor flow and terrible timing? I guess. But what I'm trying to get at is that this game is fun from the first hour to tomorrow's hour. Thanks to its extensive game modes, inbuilt level editor, and crazy amounts of modded maps, this game will never be boring. But Rhythm Doctor isn't necessarily alone in this category. There are two other games that also have great replayability thanks to many game modes and custom maps, and in fact you've probably heard of them before, Guitar Hero and Osu. These two games are likely to show up if you've ever had interest in rhythm games, because they're not only incredibly well known, but incredibly replayable. Except they both suffer from one fatal flaw, a flaw that I'm probably gonna get a lot of flack for: beat reliability. As in, does the game actually rely on the beat of the song for inputs? A true rhythm game should be about the rhythm, the core beat of the song. A lot of rhythm games instead follow the lyrics or melody or something else, and I don't think they should. as the name implies, Guitar Hero fails this, as it follows the main melody or guitar of the song, which, yeah, it's fun, but it detracts from the focus, the song. And the problem with that is that then removes any actual reliance on the music for the game. In fact, a really good test to see if a game has good beat reliability is to see if you can do well in the game with no music. Because if you can do well, then that's not a rhythm game, that's Simon Says. Da, 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 da. And then it's the, oh, what the fuck? You shouldn't be able to do well in a rhythm game without music. That defeats the point. That makes the whole thing the game is about irrelevant. Similarly, Osu, which, by the way, apparently is pronounced Os, but I don't get that. How can a U be silent? Anyway, Osu is a game that I don't like for many reasons, but that can be a whole other video. But one of the big reasons I don't like it is its beat reliability. Specifically, the fact it doesn't have any. Many maps don't actually follow the rhythm of the song, instead following either the melody or the lyrics. And just like Guitar Hero, Osu fails the Simon Says test, as I can very often do about as well without music as I can with it. Granted, that's still bad, but I don't do worse than I usually do. And especially with Osu, where most of the time the game feels less like a rhythm game and more like aim lab. It's just there to practice your aim, not to actually practice your rhythm keeping. Being accurate with a mouse shouldn't matter in a rhythm game, it should be a test of your rhythm. But Rhythm Doctor isn't like this. And actually, this game reinforces how much the song matters, especially in the boss levels. In these levels, the game often glitches or tries to distract you from the visuals in some way, but if you actually just follow the rhythm of the song, you can often beat these levels super easily. Arguably, you're able to do just as well in this game with a blindfold on. This is a stark contrast from Osu and Guitar Hero, where the beat actually matters in this game. The rhythm is the core focus. And that's what makes it such a fun game to play, such a rewarding and satisfying experience. It's not like Osu where you mess up if you click in the wrong spot. And remember earlier when I mentioned how great Rhythm Doctor is despite its one input system? Well, yeah, Osu and Guitar Hero also suffer from real disorganized feeling to most maps because they're just super overwhelming. This often stems from having bad beat reliability, since more timing points equal more points you have to hit. So with these games, it's two bad things combined. I either fail because the map timing is terrible, or I'm failing because, well, you try to understand that. Rhythm Doctor just does everything perfectly, and it's why I think it's the best rhythm game of all time, because it nails everything that it should be good at. From having great timing systems, incredible replayability, and a good reliance on the beat of the song. I think that it's everything that's great about rhythm games and more. And so, with that, I think it's about time I take my leave, because I really can't think of another rhythm game that does these things as well as... Okay, there are other games that nail these 3 points as well, and I'd be stupid not to acknowledge it, but I also think that reinforces my point, because Rhythm Doctor does the same thing that those well-revered rhythm games do. It's a proper yet fresh, down-to-earth yet endlessly expandable, unique yet exciting rhythm game. It's what I believe all rhythm games should aim for. It just feels amazing to play, and I don't think I'll ever get tired of it. It's genuinely perfect. But you know, I'll probably just end up playing Osu anyways.